It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to The Phil Ferguson Show. Episode 485, I think, is where we are. And coming up later in the show, we have an interview with Bob Barnes, and he is one of the organizers for a conference over the border in Canada, in the city of Sarnia. The conference is called BAHACON, and we're going to talk about that during his interview. But if you have some time, buy tickets, go do that. I also have a little update for those interested on EV charging and a trip that I took. So for those who are following along in that game, you can learn more about how EVs work. And I signed up for a free dinner that I'm going to have, I guess, a week from now, maybe less, depending on when you're listening to this. I got a promotional document in the mail from a financial advisor that's going to give me a free dinner at Ruth Chris Steakhouse. So hopefully they actually give me a steak, not just dinner at a steakhouse, but a steak dinner at a steakhouse. And we'll see what they have to say. I am not hiding any information. If they ask me what I do, I will tell them. If they ask me my name, I will tell them. But they sent me the offer in the mail for free, and we'll see what they have to say. And I'll talk about that here later in the show. And then, of course, after the event, I will give you an update. And probably near the end of the show, or after the show is over, I have a little audio clip from Seth Meyers. Is he on the Tonight Show, the Late Show? Whatever, I can't keep track of it anymore. A little thing about Trump, and I found it amusing, so I think you will too. But before we get into all that good stuff, I'm going to circle back to this idea of Trump. You may or may not have heard that he lost his civil lawsuit in the state of New York. And now keep in mind, this is a state case. So even if he becomes president, he can't pardon himself from a state case. And the really important part of this state case is something like $464 million he has to come up with. And on top of that, every day that he does not come up with the money, it increases by more than $100,000 a day because of interest. We're talking some huge numbers. And of course, he's perfectly happy to brag that he's rich, and he's very, very rich, but he doesn't have it. He doesn't have the money. Matter of fact, it's so bad that he doesn't have the money that his attorneys have now asked for permission to pay a smaller amount or to have more time, and they acknowledged publicly that 30 different organizations, and they didn't elaborate who, but bonding companies, banks, financiers, whatever, 30 different organizations have declined to help out with the bond, to keep him out of jail, to pay the fine until he has his appeal. And of course, he's complaining it's not fair because everything is not fair to him, because he's always the one who's injured and put out and the system is against him. Well, fuck you. Cough up the money. Now, here's the thing that's going to be very interesting. In a few days, the 30 days that Trump had to come up with this almost $500 million is going to end. And maybe the court gives them another week for a reason or something like that. But Trump's going to have to come up with something shy of $500 million. If he does not, the state can start repossessing, acquiring, divesting, taking over his assets, his properties, and liquidating them until they have the almost $500 million cash in their hands. Now, if Trump wins his appeal and is found not guilty in a higher level court for all these financial frauds, the state of New York would have to give him his money back. But here's the thing. The reason that he lost this case is because he was found guilty of committing fraud. A whole lot of fraud. And this doesn't surprise any of you, I'm sure, but a whole lot of fraud. But one of the biggest pieces of his fraud is artificially inflating the value of his properties to get big loans, and then depreciating or underinflating, playing down the value of his properties when it came time to pay taxes. So basically had two sets of books. And so he's avoiding paying his fair amount of taxes, which is part of this growing trend of rich people just not paying taxes, which again is pure bullshit. If you make a ton of money, you should pay not only your fair share, but you should pay at a higher rate than people who make $30,000 or $40,000. I stand by that. You may disagree, but if you have been fortunate enough to make millions or tens of millions in this country, I don't want to hear you bitch that you had to pay a few thousand in taxes. Shut the fuck up. But anyway, so Trump was convicted of financial fraud, and the bulk of it has to do with real estate. So we're going to wait and see, but I am predicting that when the state of New York goes to repo one of his skyscrapers in New York or some other property, even if they acquire a building or a property that's worth $500 million and then they go to liquidate it to create the cash, they're going to find that there's no equity there. They're probably going to find that each and every property that Trump owns, he has leveraged and has more debt against the property than what they're going to be able to sell it for. In part because it's damaged goods, but in part because if a building was worth $500 million, he probably has already told somebody it's worth $800 million or $1 billion, and he has loans of $600,000 or $700,000. It's like sometimes people with their homes, when they appreciate in value, refinance their house and take money out. And they refinance their house a couple years later and take money out. And it's nice because all of a sudden you can pull out $100,000 or $250,000 on a really big house and feel like you're flush with cash and buy yourself all kinds of stuff, but you owe more on the house that you're going to have to pay. And that can work when interest rates are really low, and they're no longer really low. And since 30 different companies don't want to lend Trump any money, he's running out of suckers to borrow from, and the rates aren't going to be low like they were 2 or 3 years ago. But I bet a building that's worth $500 million that you could sell for $500 million, he probably claimed it was worth $1 billion and borrowed $700,000 or $800,000 against it. So some of the properties, who knows, maybe all of his properties are upside down. So it's I'm going to call it a real estate house of cards. If that's the case, and I think that it will be because of all the people that won't lend him money and the fact that he was guilty of inflating the values of his properties for the purposes of getting loans. So all of these properties are loaned up to here or above, and there's no equity there. There is a possibility that we'll find out that Trump is actually, in total, broke and has nothing on net. So when you take all of the things he owns minus all of the monies he owes to other people, his net value is going to be below zero. And if that's the case, and if the state starts collecting his assets and trying to sell them, and they find out that they are not even worth enough money to cover the debt, I will be first in line to laugh my fucking ass off that this guy goes down in flames, because people think, I can't even fathom it, that 20, 25, 30, 35, 36% of the population thinks that he's a good businessman. He bankrupted casinos. It's all a con. It's all a grift. It's always the way it's been. It's the way it's going to be until he's literally put out of business and there's nothing to hide. inside the shadows, but we shall see. Anyway, my short little rant on that. Take a quick break and go on with the rest of the show.
The nun gets up in the morning and leaves and walks down the corridor. And another nun looks at her and says, it's a difficult thing to say, another nun, and says, you got out of the wrong side of the bed this morning. And she goes on down, and another nun says, you got out of the wrong side of the bed this morning. And this happens 15 times, and by then she's livid. And she meets the Mother Superior. And the Mother Superior is just about to open her mouth, and the sister says, don't tell me that I got out of the wrong side of the bed this morning! And the Mother Superior said, I wasn't going to say that. I was just going to say, what are you doing with the bishop's shoes on?
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Investments should be based on your personal situation, and you, of course, should consult with your financial advisor or tax professional before taking any actions. All right, you guys, I just did something I'm probably going to regret signing up for, but I couldn't resist. So I got this thing in the mail. Here, it's a little cardboard papery kind of thing. I got invited to a free dinner at a steakhouse. Doesn't say I'm going to get a steak, but it's at a steakhouse. And let's see, it's later, a couple weeks from now. So hopefully I'll have an update if I don't chicken out. You have to call and register or go online, but I called and I registered. I've got a time. We'll see. But let's see here. It says, Philip, dinner for you and a guest is on us. You know what happens when you get free stuff, right? Aside from this podcast, which was totally free, no strings attached. You are cordially invited to join us at one of our complimentary dinner events. We anticipate completely full events and seating is limited. So please guarantee your space now by using one of the convenient RSVP options listed below. And then it has, and this is in like a green, but really big font and bold. It should have been like blood red to make it even more scary. A looming recession, record high inflation, the risk of rising taxes, and struggling global economies. And then a smaller font, but different than everything else. There's like 10 different sizes and fonts on this fucking thing. Okay. Are you comfortable? Wait, I'm sorry. I'm trying to read this. Are you comfortable you and your loved ones are protected from a potential economic hurricane? Oh, that's awful. Don't let taxes erode taxes, not Texas. Don't let taxes erode your life savings strategies to help reduce income and estate tax on your IRA, 401k, or pension that will help boost your retirement income. Yes, that's all one sentence. Maybe I'm just reading it. I don't know. Maybe it reads better for everybody else. But let's see here. It says, important dinner event topics. Recession. Could the economy collapse? What happens if the markets dive just as you retire? Next one, seeking tax-free money for life? How to create your own pension plan, making your money work hard for you. The next one, effects of global economy. What impacts could Russia-Ukraine crisis have on the economy and your retirement savings? ? And in parentheses is the and your retirement savings. Totally unnecessary. Record high inflation. Will your investment yields be able to keep up with rising inflation? Taxes. What are the best strategies that aim to reduce taxes on your retirement savings and investments? Required minimum distributions, which for most people are now like 73, and in a couple of years it's going to be 75. probably a lot of people aren't even going to make it to the age of required minimum distributions. And even then, when you have to take required minimum distributions, it doesn't mean you have to spend them. It just means you have to take it out of a qualified account like an IRA and put it in a taxable account. Anyway, required minimum distributions, how to develop an efficient distribution plan that could save you future taxes. Okay, cool. Retirement income, how to create a substantial retirement income plan. Oh, sustainable. My mistake. Retirement income. How to create a sustainable retirement income plan that also includes replacing a spouse's lost income. Rising healthcare costs. Prepare for high costs associated with long-term care. How longevity can affect your finances. Seeking to minimize risk. The big mistakes most Americans are making with their plans and decisions on retirement accounts. Okay, I'm not sure what that meant, but wills, trusts, and probate. The important facts about your legal documents, changes, and how they may drastically affect your plans. What? Caution. Estate plans and documents, if not updated, may actually protect your assets and may not work as you intended. May not actually protect your assets and may not work as intended. True fact, by the way. So get a second opinion. Don't miss our dinner event. If you are thinking of investing or have already invested money in accounts, including IRAs, 401ks, CDs, annuities, stocks, bonds, life insurance, money markets, or real estate. Oh, just those topics, right? Just so if you're thinking of or have invested money in one of the accounts that you would use to invest money in, and then it has the steakhouse name and everything, and the phone number to call, the RSVP code, and then a lot of fine print. Not going to go over all of that. And so, yeah, I called and I signed up. Oh, I'm not going to read the guy's name, but this is all sponsored by this person. He has been serving families in the financial services field for almost 20 years. He is the author of the book No Pain, Big Gains that will release this fall. The author of a book that will release this fall. So 7 to 10 months after this mailing. That's interesting. So he's got to write a book. He's got to sit down and write a book. And it's funny, I've gone to a few free seminars in the past. And I was at one where a guy was the author of 3 books, and you could get them for free, or they handed them out, or they laid them on the tables. And each book was like, I don't know, like 6x8 in size, like a big Post-it card, and you open it up and it has wide margins and big fonts, large fonts, and only about 50 pages. So I guess I could do that, right? I could be an author. I could write a book. He has founded 3 financial companies, one which specializes in serving retirees and pre-retirees. Well, that's kind of like everybody, isn't it? Retirees and pre-retirees. And why 3 financial companies? That's fascinating. Blank was born and raised in a military family and is passionate about helping those who have served in the military and their families. In his leisure, Blank enjoys spending time with his wife, Blank, and their 9 children. No wonder he's got 3 financial companies. If he's going to pay for college or diapers or something. 9 children. Oh, and it's funny. This Meet Your Presenter details here that I just read to you has like random bolding and random font changes within it. It's chaos. And of course, all of this is put together by a company. They did say the name of the company when I called, but I didn't catch it. It was so fast. But this is probably one of the companies that I get spam email all the time, to find more clients, to reach out to more clients. So this guy is probably paying a pretty penny for a whole bunch of people to show up. It doesn't say how many are going to show up. I hope it's not just like me and 5 other people. But I am not going under an alias. I used my name. I used my phone number. I did not give them an email address because I get so much fucking spam already that they're just going to have to suck it. They didn't get an email address. So we'll see how it goes and how painful it is. And I'll do a review on it in a couple of weeks after I go. And my challenge to you as a regular listener, what is going to be the pitch? I'm asking you, what do you think I'm going to hear about at this dinner? I'd love to hear from you. You can email me, Phil at Polaris Financial Planning, or hit me up on Facebook. And with your prognostication of what is going to solve each and every one of these horrifically scary problems. And that's it for this little segment, and we'll do some more of the show.
A lot of people come up here and they thank Jesus for this award. I want you to know that no one had less to do with this award than Jesus. He didn't help me a bit. If it was up to him, Caesar Milan would be up here with that damn dog. So all I can say is, suck it, Jesus, this award is my God now.
The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Investments should be based on your personal situation, and you, of course, should consult with your financial advisor or tax professional before taking any actions. This is an EV charging update for those who are interested. Quick reminder, I drive an Ioniq 6, and it has the 20-inch wheels. And the reason I mention that is that with 18-inch wheels, which I will probably get at some point in the future, I could get an additional 56 miles of range per full battery, which is stunning to me, the fact that they put these really big wheels on, because apparently, whatever, that's the style, people like it. I don't give a shit. It could just be a black disc. I don't care. I want the extra range. Anyway, my version is rated 305 miles of range by the EPA. If I drive around town in Orlando on surface streets, local streets, maybe some state highways, sometimes getting an average speed of 30 miles an hour, sometimes getting up to 55 or 60 for short periods of time, I can get really close to 350, and if I really gamed it, maybe even 400 miles of range on a charge. I've not got 400 yet, but have definitely got over 350, 370 miles. On highway, of course, and this is backwards from conventional cars or gasoline-powered cars, generally speaking, in an EV, well, in all cars this is true, the faster you go, the less range you get, the faster you burn through your energy. The big difference is that inside of cities, when you have a gasoline car and you stop, you don't recuperate any of the gasoline that you just burned to get up to speed. So it's all wasted, and an EV recaptures that. So going really fast dramatically reduces your range. And I had the opportunity to drive what ended up being a total of 551 miles from Orlando to Miami and back, all in one day. And Google Maps says it's about 4 to 4.5 hours each way, roughly 9 hours. Theoretically, if you did it overnight, maybe you could do the whole trip in 8, probably more realistically 9. And there was some traffic, a couple of accidents, some road construction, just par for the course of driving on the highway. So the really important thing is that as far as electricity time, the time to charge the car, the total time to charge the car for the trip was 55 minutes. So that's what actually happened, and I'll get into theoreticals for a minute. So 9 hours, give or take, of driving, 551 miles. The total time spent putting electricity in the car was 55 minutes. Now, if I had been driving 550 miles straight in one direction without coming back and had no break at the other end, people will ask, well, how often would you have stopped? Well, if I was going just straight through, I probably would have stopped easily 3 times, just because, I don't like sitting in a car that long anymore. I'm not 25 where I can sit in the car for 8 to 10 hours and just go. So usually when my wife and I are driving like from Chicago to Orlando, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, we switch. So we stop, and that's with 2 drivers. So I would probably normally stop if I was doing it by myself and fully awake once every 2.5 hours. And if you can go a lot longer without stopping, that goes in the favor of gasoline and the time taken to do the drive. So with 3 stops, you could have maybe 10 minutes a stop to get gas. You know, you stop, you get gas, you go in and use the bathroom, you get a drink maybe. One time I stopped to get McDonald's, and then I just drove over to the charging tower and connected and ate the meal, ran into Walmart and came back, and the car was ready to go. And I was kind of like, I wish it was a little slower. Not really, but it's fast enough. So the total charging time was 55 minutes. If I had only stopped twice in a gasoline car, once for gas and a bathroom break and once for food maybe, I figured that'd be a 10-minute stop and a 20-minute stop. Maybe it would be 3 stops, but that's not the way I drove it. So that would be 30 minutes maybe for gasoline bathroom stops and 55 for the electrical stops. So the electricity charging took me 25 minutes more than my crude guess of how long the stops would have been in gasoline. Now, for my driving style, it's probably going to be pretty close to parity because I would have stopped a third time if it was a straight shot and stretched my legs for a 9 or 10 hour drive. But, 25 extra minutes for 9 hours of driving is not so bad. So that's the facts as they happen. Now, what could have gone better? And of course, things could have gone worse, but what if things had gone better or quicker for charging the electric car? So the first thing that I did is when I left Orlando with 100% charge, I stopped a little bit past halfway down to Miami to charge my car, and the battery was at 46%. Now, something very important for you to know, if you don't know this already, electric cars charge faster when the battery is lower. Now, at 46%, you can get a pretty good speed, and my car, theoretically, its peak charging speed is 240 kilowatt. The old Chevy Bolt EV that I used to drive at a peak of 55. 55 versus 240. So 4.5 times faster. And of course, the Ioniq 6 not only charges faster, but holds that speed a lot longer than almost any car in that price range, in particular, longer, higher charging rate than a Tesla. So this car charges considerably faster than any Tesla, even though Tesla has a peak charging of 250 and this car has 240, which obviously is a very small difference. Probably if I had been more tolerant of low charge levels in my car, maybe, taken a little more risk instead of stopping to charge where I did when the battery was 46%, if I had gone to where the battery was 20 or 15%. Now, I had no need to deal with that level of anxiety and possible stress, but I'm also not familiar with that route. We've been to Miami a few times, but I don't know every charger and how reliable they are. So I picked ones that had the best scores that often seemed to be empty and thought it would be easy and convenient. The other thing is that I overcharged at 2 of the stops. So one of the rules of thumb kind of for charging a car is you go up to 80% full, because after that, the car will charge slower and slower and slower. I went to 90% on 2 of the stops. So the funny thing is I could go theoretically in my car from 10% to 80% charge in 18 minutes, and I have done that. But to go from 80 to 90 is an additional 8 minutes. So if I had just gone to 80 and then ran the battery lower for the next stop, I wouldn't have spent those 8 minutes, and those 8 minutes would have probably been replaced by 2 or 3 minutes of charging at a much higher rate. So I did stop 3 times to charge. I could have easily stopped 2 times to charge. And if I set it so that I got back to my house, with 5 or 10% left, because I know where I'm going to stop, my house, it could have been 2 stops, not 3. So that could have saved me 15 minutes, not charging as high and going lower, not to mention the time on and off the exit for the 3 stops versus 2. There was one location that I went to that had 10 high-speed chargers, but there were 15 cars there. So there were already 10 cars charging and an additional 5. So I just hit the map and went to a nearby location that had 4 chargers and 0 cars and pulled right in and charged. So if I had stopped only twice, if I had let the battery go lower and not charged as high, I could have saved probably 15 minutes in charging time. The other thing I could have done to save time was, or at least time in charging, was to drive a little slower. And as my reward for doing something nice for my daughter, with only 1 mile left on my 551 mile trip, 1 mile before my final exit, I got a speeding ticket. So I was not trying to nurse out, really long range by driving slow. I was going. So if I had gone slower, maybe I could have saved a couple of minutes of charging. The other thing, of course, is that the car can charge at 240. And one location that I charged at only had 150 kilowatt chargers, which are still pretty fast. And the amazing thing is they peaked out at 175. So they're rated for 150, but gave me 175. So that was really nice. Another one was rated for 350, and I got a peak speed of 125. So those 2 chargers running at something, below what I could get theoretically, added additional time that theoretically, when the system is more robust and more chargers have 350 kilowatts and more of them actually put out up to 350 kilowatts, that could have saved an extra 10 minutes. So if I had gone lower on the battery, not charged as high, and had perfect charging experiences, my guess is that the time to charge, the time on the trip, would be at parity with gasoline, unless you're just going to hop in your car and drive 9 hours. Because I can't do 551 miles in the car. I can do, like I said, 250, pretty good. So it was just too far for me to make it without stopping, but I could have easily stopped 2/3 of the way there and then 2/3 of the way back or halfway back and come into home, with 5 or 10% state of charge. And you could do that. But why? I mean, I guess I was trying to do a realistic comparison of how I drive. Maybe at another trip, I'll try to push it to see, if I can get to 2 or 3% charge or 5% charge, because then you have a much longer time of charging speed. Because 2 of the times when I got to 80% charge, it's kind of like I'm here, right? I'm here and I'm going to have to add the electricity at some point. I'm here, I'm plugged in, and it's going pretty quick. At 80%, the car is still adding electricity over 100 kilowatt. So at 90%, it gets down to around 50 or 60 kilowatt and then falls off even slower. So the amazing thing is, even at 90% state of charge, this car is adding more electricity, a higher rate of flow of electricity than the peak theoretical 55 kilowatt hour or kilowatt from the old Chevy Bolt that I had. So easily this car charges 4 times faster. And of course, it's actually a bigger battery, so you can go longer. So on the highway with reasonably warm temperatures, temperature is very important to the exact amount of distance that you're going to get. If the perfect temperature, I did end up running the air conditioning for the last couple hours of the trip because it got to be around 80, but you could get probably 250 miles on this car. If I switch out the wheels, which I think at this point, I'm just going to be lame and wait until the first set of tires wears out and then replace the wheels and the tires at the same time to save some money. But an extra 56 miles of range. I'll call it 30 miles of range on the highway. So you would be looking at theoretically 2.5 to 3 hours of driving at highway speed with a 15 to 20 minute stop every 2.5 to 3 hours. Okay. Still either on parity or a little slower than a gasoline car. Especially if you stop, every couple hours to stretch your legs or to get some food. But while people focus on this, and I clearly focus on this for this segment, the important thing to also remember is all the time that you save with the car. So if you can charge at home, if you have a house or an apartment with access to charging, and that will become more and more common as we go forward, or if you have street charging, which not a very big thing in the United States yet, but with the new NACS standard, the cost for providing that equipment is going to drop precipitously. And I imagine a day where you just park like you would normally park, and on the light poles, I don't know if it'll be every other space, you just take the cord out of your car, out of your trunk, and you plug in and you charge overnight, even if you're in a big apartment building. So that's not today, but that will be the case in the future. So all those times, like at my house, I spend seconds charging because I pull into the garage, I get out of my car, I walk around, I grab the cord, I plug it into my car. So don't forget all of the gas station trips that you are not making. And not only are you not making those stops, you're not going in and being tempted to buy a $4 Coke or a $5 Monster or whatever they cost these days. But, so I think on net, the amount of time that I spend getting energy into my car versus a gasoline car is significantly lower. The exceptions being the really long range drives. And this one, not huge distance, 551 miles. The way I drove it yesterday cost me probably an extra 25 minutes because of electricity versus gas. If I had really gamificated it and had a little bit better luck with the chargers, it could have been dead on even with the amount of time I would have taken driving a gasoline car. Of course, there is also the possibility that it doesn't go idealistically or just normal like I had, but you have where a charger won't charge or doesn't start. To be honest, I haven't really found that. The biggest problem I had was pulling into a location with 10 chargers and 15 cars. So I went to another charger. Around Miami in particular, high-speed chargers, locations, there's probably 60 of them. It's absolutely staggering how many are in that area, and it's because there's a lot of freaking people. Orlando, the big Orlando area, there's 4 currently Electrify America high-speed stations, and when you throw in Electrify America, EVgo, ChargePoint, and Florida Power and Light is adding locations. There's probably a good 20 plus locations, maybe 25. I haven't done an exact count where you could charge. I'm using the Electrify America, which, by the way, all of this charging was free because with an Ioniq vehicle purchase, at least when I bought my car, you got 2 years of free charging at these high-speed chargers. So that's pretty cool. But they're adding new stations all the time. The rate of new chargers being added is increasing dramatically. As an example, we've driven, like I mentioned, the Bolt almost 2 years ago, from Chicago to Orlando. And we had to be very careful. It had a much shorter range and a much slower charging speed, and there were fewer chargers. Without counting chargers in the Atlanta area, because again, there's probably like 100 locations around Atlanta where you can high-speed charge your car. But I prefer to charge before I get to Atlanta and then after I leave Atlanta, so I don't have to deal with any traffic or anything goofy in Atlanta. But on that route between our Chicago house and the Orlando house, there's now easily a dozen additional chargers that weren't there 2 years ago. And from what I've seen from Pilot, Flying J, Circle K, 7-Eleven, and some other providers of, places where you could stop to get gas and or food, there will probably be in 2 years from now an additional 12 to 20, maybe even 30 more charging locations along that route. Additionally, the charging locations originally, like Electrify America, would be at a Walmart, and it would have 4 towers. There'd be a 50 kilowatt, 2 150s, and 1 350. So your odds of getting that are 1 in 4. So even if your car can take 240, if the only charger that's open is 50, that's what you're going to get. Well, Electrify America has been going through those stations, and many of them now that had 4 chargers now still have 4 chargers, but they're all 4 of them are 350. Most new installations are putting in from Electrify America 6, 8, or 10 chargers that have 350 kilowatt capability. So it's not just the number of locations that's dramatically increasing. It is the speeds that are provided, the amount of energy that can flow at these locations. Keep in mind, Hyundai, Kia, Genesis, all one company, has agreed, like Ford and Chevy and almost everyone else, to adapt the NACS, the North American Charging Standard, the Tesla connection, which Tesla gave up proprietary control, and it's now the national standard, the North American standard. With that, I will have an additional, in the United States only, an additional 12,000 plus locations that I can charge at a Tesla connector. The problem, small problem for my car, because it's an 800 volt architecture, the version 3 chargers, which are the 12,000 chargers from Tesla that I can use, because there's another 5,000 or 6,000 that are V1 or V2 legacy chargers that are still out there and working great for Tesla users. The problem with the version 3, I probably will be limited to a maximum charging rate of 100. So if I can get 125, 175, 240, that's way faster than 100. What it does, though, is it takes away what I don't think it's right to call it range anxiety. I know how far I can go. It's charging anxiety. If I drive 200 miles and my car says there's only 50 miles left, and that may or may not actually happen, and I go to a charger and it's out, it used to be that in 50 or 60 miles, there's another high-speed charger. Well, I've only got 50 miles left. Now it's more like in 20 or 30 miles, there's another charger. And then when Hyundai is allowed to use the Tesla chargers, it's something like, okay, where I stopped doesn't work. I go to the other side of the highway or across the street, and there's a Tesla supercharging station that only gives me, because of them being 400 volt chargers in my car, taking 800, I only get 100 kilowatt. It's going to add to that stop maybe 5 to 10 minutes of extra time to charge your car, but you can charge your car. And so it's going to dramatically reduce that anxiety of actually driving long term. If you really, really want to just get in your car and drive 5, 6, 7 hours without stopping, no electric car can do that. I think there's one Lucid that, maybe can do close to 500 miles, but it's a lot of money. So for reasonable car prices, 300 plus miles of range is fantastic. The charging speed of, 200 is really good. A little faster is better, but even 150, it's just going to be a little bit slower. It's just going to add a few minutes to your trip. So it's not so horrible, but we're getting there where it's pretty close to where you can drive most anywhere. Now, someone will go, I can't drive across northern Montana and find charging stations. Okay, buy a gasoline vehicle. Right? It's not everywhere yet, to be fair. It's not everywhere yet. But for most people, 95% of people, the charging locations are there. The perk of overnight charging at your residence is not there for people that live in very dense housing areas yet. Hopefully that is to come when more level 2 chargers are in place in the next few years. Anyway, that's my little Electrify EV charging update on an actual pretty reasonably long 551 mile drive and how it worked out for me. If you have questions or you want me to take another route or do an experiment, I might be up for it. You can email me, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com. I think I mentioned this real quick, but because the car is brand new, all the charging was free. And I tell people the shortcut version, because people ask all the time, how much does it cost to charge? And one of the tricky things is it depends. Using a high-speed charger along the interstate, it costs almost as much as gas. That's the shorthand answer. But if you do 80% or 90% of your driving locally and can charge from home, the dollar amount I have to pay for the electricity to get 1 gallon worth of range in Florida, where the rates are a little higher, is about $1.40, $1.50. In Chicago, energy is a little more affordable. It's about $1.10 to $1.20. When I had on hourly billing in Chicago and the rates varied overnight, it would be 50, 60 cents to get the same distance you would out of a gallon of gas. So there's some short and dirty numbers for you. Of course, with Electrify America, if you did it all the time, you could sign up for a $5 or $7 monthly fee, and then you pay materially less, but you're paying the fee. So you'd have to decide if that works out for you. Whew. All right, more than enough. Going to take a quick break and get on with the show.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We are going to talk about this amazing thing, BAHACON, and I have Bob Barnes with me. How are you today, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you, Phil.
You know, I actually was thinking that maybe I shouldn't do this because I don't want this to be too big. And if somehow you've been under a rock, dear listener, this is the third year for this, and it is a beautifully run mid-size, but I'm afraid, with all the success, it's going to become a large conference, which I'm sure it'll be fine. You guys will handle it. But an absolute delight, and probably the most, down-to-earth, friendly, welcoming conference that I've been to in a few years. And maybe it's because it's in Canada. Canada? You know the place I'm talking about. So Bob, yeah. When is it, and what's it going to cost me to get there?
Well, the first of all, let me just give you the location.
Yeah.
We're located just 50 miles north of Detroit, just over the border into Canada. And with being in Canada, there's a very advantage to Americans coming, because our dollar, you get $1.37 for every dollar. So when you say, ask me the price of the conference, if they buy the early bird ticket, there's a $50 saving, and they can buy it for $300 Canadian. But that translates down to about $220 American, so it's really reasonable.
And I can confirm that because you know what I did earlier today, in preparation, I got my tickets for my wife and I. So we're all set to go again because we had so much fun last year.
What did it cost in U.S. dollars?
Yeah, we got the all included early bird for, I think it was $225, and then I think there was some that's bullshit fees and whatever's that people hate for I think about another $15 total.
Yeah, well, if someone buys the total package, it includes 6 meal functions, includes a boat cruise down the St. Clair River, and all kinds of stuff. But for the regular registration, it's only early bird price is $140, which is only like $105 American right now. So it's a bargain. And Phil, you said about how big it's going to get. Let me just explain a little bit there, because it's an issue that our board of directors are dealing with right now.
Yeah,
we know we're going to start this year, and we're trying to figure out where do we cut it off at. Now, we're more interested in quality than we are quantity. And to give you an example of that, the boat cruise we put people on, it's licensed for 192 people. We cut it off at 160, because once you get over 160, it just gets too crowded. And we don't want to take away from the experience people have, so we've cut that off. And the hotel, it's a brand new 4-point Sheraton. It was a Holiday Inn at one time, but they just put about $30 million into it, and it's completely done. You're going to be so surprised, Phil, when you come this year. It
Nice.
is absolutely gorgeous. And but they advertise that their main ballroom will hold 700 people, but 700 people is jammed in theater style, and we're just going to refuse to do any theater style. We'll never go theater style. We like the table set up because it allows all the people to mingle and connect and chat and all when they're all around a table kind of thing. And what we do with our speakers, we ask them. We have a meeting ahead of time with the speakers, and we ask them, please don't sit together, spread yourself around. And so they're really good at that. The speakers are just so good at that. They wander around, they talk to people and all that stuff. So getting back to the capacity, they say theater or table style, it has a capacity of about 440. But that's without a stage. When you put a stage in, it drops it down about 420. But we're going to cut it off at 350. We don't want people to be crowded. We want everybody to really enjoy themselves, and we're not going to get away from the quality of our conference rather than try to get more people in.
Well, then I am extra glad that I went to BAHACON.com, and that's BAHACON, BAHACON.com. When is this happening?
It starts the weekend of August the 9th to the 11th, which is 2 weeks earlier than we have the first two.
Yeah.
We moved it back because people wanted to move back. So it's August the 9th to the 11th. We start out on the Friday night with our VIP dinner, and then we have our conference on the Saturday. And then we have a total of 12 speakers. 10 of the speakers speak on Saturday and 2 speak on a Sunday morning before we go on the cruise. But let me tell you something. Most people, we haven't even advertised it yet, but I'll tell you for your listeners, we want people to be entertained, and stuff like that. And so we've come up with an idea this year on our after party. And previous years, it costs money for that. This year, it's all included and free with your registration. We're having a picture contest where all the speakers are sending us pictures of them when they were 4 and 5 years old, some maybe 2 years old, that kind of stuff. And so what we're going to do at the after party, we're going to run a slideshow because, as you know, there's 5 pull-down projector screens there. Yeah. And we're going to do them one at a time. We'll take one speaker, put them up about 4 minutes, and then we'll go to the next one. And we're going to have entry forms on the table where people can fill out who they think it is. And then the prizes. We think, and I'm a little early on this, but we think we're going to get the prizes up to about $1,000. So we want everybody to be able to enjoy themselves at this after party. Like, for instance, everybody knows Arn Ra. Everybody knows all the hair and all the stuff he's got. You ever seen that guy without hair? People are going to see him without hair when he was 4 and 5 years old.
Oh.
And I can just envision the people at these tables enjoying themselves by trying to guess who this person is and who that is and all that stuff. And it's a communicating thing. We're trying to get interaction between everybody.
Yeah.
So this after party is going to be a blast. And we haven't even promoted that yet, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, for anyone who hasn't yet gone to the website, because they probably should have when I mentioned it the first time, I'm just going to rip through the names and they can figure out who they know and who they don't know later. I think every single person on this list I know except for one. But Seth Andrews, Forrest Valkyrie, Kate Cohen, Yvette de Termont, Aaron Ra, as you mentioned, Megan Lewis, Drew, I don't know how to say his last name, Beckus?
Beckius, yeah.
Beckius. Sorry, Drew. Josh Bowen, Melanie Trek. Oh my God, I just call her Melanie. It's Melanie, but it's Treknik King. Abby Hafer, who's been on almost all of these have been on my show. David Fitzgerald and Hemet Mehta. Sorry for the names I messed up. They're all going to be there. They're all going to talk. And like you said, it is round tables. I don't know if they're 10 tops or 12 tops, but it's not just rows and rows and rows of seats where you fall asleep. You can visit, you can hang out, you have a table, you can spread out a little bit, and you can visit. The food was fantastic. The exchange rate was fantastic. You know, last year, the only problem I had nothing to do with you. It was getting back into the United States. It was about an hour wait in the car. But you know what? It's a whole weekend of fun. If that's the biggest problem you have, you know what? Your life's pretty good.
Yes. Most of the time, it's very easy to come across. I've lived in Sarnia my whole life. I go over to Portland, Michigan, probably at least 3 times a week. And normally, I just go over and back. But the odd time, there'll be a bit of a jam, but normally it's very quick.
Yeah, because when we went into Canada, it was, a couple minutes. Going back, maybe we just got the wrong time of the day, but quite a bit of a backup. But like I said, just plan for it. And if it's not there, even better. And like you said, everyone was great. All the speakers last year, and I'm sure they'll be just as good this year, about spreading themselves around, going and sitting at tables, moving from table to table. So if you're not next to or being able to talk to your favorite speaker right away, don't worry. They're going to hang out. Everybody's there for the whole weekend, right? We're not having people fly in and give a talk and then just leave. They're hanging out.
Yeah. Let me just interrupt. That's the one thing that people like about the boat cruise.
Yeah.
That they can go up with people face to face and talk to speakers and all that kind of stuff. And I can, like Seth Andrews, I remember last year him telling me, he said, lots of times he says, I'll just give my presentation and kind of wander off and do other things. He says, you have such a great lineup. I never leave the room. And for the last 2 years, Seth Andrews has been there and never left the room. He stays there because he just enjoys it so much.
Yeah, it's an absolute fantastic event, and I can highly recommend it for anyone that can get there. If you're in the Northeast or the Midwest, you can drive there. Come on, folks. This is not far. It's the part of Canada that dips way down towards Michigan. If we didn't know any better, it's still the United States. But you got the exchange rate, as you said, wonderful refurbished place. And then on Sunday, the boat ride up and down, I guess it's St. Lawrence, is it? Am I got the right name?
St. Clair.
St. Clair.
St. Clair.
That's absolutely fun, too. So what else have I not thought of that's cool about this conference?
Well, for people flying in, there's a shuttle service from the Detroit airport, because we have people coming in from California and from Washington State and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If they fly into Detroit, there's a shuttle service that'll bring them right to the conference.
Nice. Is that something that you guys set up, or is it just for the hotel?
Yeah. No, it's something that we have we have on our website. If they go to the information page, it talks. There's information on the shuttle service.
Oh, that's really handy.
That's how we bring our speakers. All come in by shuttle. They fly into Detroit, and we coordinate it so they all get in about the same time, and then we have 2 shuttles that go down and pick them up and bring them to the conference.
That is absolutely fantastic. And of course, you're going to be there, right?
Sure am.
Why would you do all this work and then miss it? Excellent. Well, Bob, thank you so much. What did you have?
One thing.
Yes, tell me.
I just want to make one last thing. Our vice president of our nonprofit, he is the MC at the conference, and he didn't do it the first year. He did it last year and did a fantastic job. People are going to love this guy. He's very funny. he just makes it flow well, and we're so lucky to have him as our MC.
I was impressed last year, so good that that's not changed. I look forward to it. And Bob, again, this is August 9th through 11th. The town is Sarnia, like Narnia with an S. It's just over the border, like you said, near Detroit. You fly into Detroit, or you drive up to Detroit and you just go across the bridge. I'm pretty sure, Americans, you will need a passport. I don't think this. Do you know that for sure, Bob, that you're going to have a passport?
Well, there's 4 ways. All this information on our website as well. There's 4 things people can come over with. Passport's one, a Nexus card is another. If they have an enhanced driver's license, which has a picture on, that's all they need. Or if they have a birth certificate and their driver's license, that's all they need. The easiest thing, and I think most people today, most states, I think, have enhanced, where they have your picture on your driver's license. That's all you need. It's very easy to cross the border.
Excellent. Well, Bob, thank you for taking the time and helping my listeners learn about BAHACON, and that's the Blue Water Atheist Humanist Agnostics Conference, BAHACON.com. Go and reserve now before it's sold out, because given what we had last year, I have every expectation you're going to hit that limit pretty quick. So thank you again for coming and joining me on the Phil Ferguson Show.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. One last thing that I want to kind of go over, and it's kind of been stuck in my craw. Is that how you say that? Anyway, it's something that's under my skin. It's bothering me, driving me nuts. I see people posting crazy memes all the time, and crazy political memes. And I'm sure some of them are just Russian or Chinese bots that are making this stuff and sharing it. But then regular old-fashioned people share those memes because they think it's funny, or they think they agree with the sentiment. As an example, I'm going to talk about Ukraine here for a minute. The vast majority of any money that's been, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, given to Ukraine by the United States of America, almost 90 or 95% of it comes back to the United States for weapons and bullets and munitions and rockets and rocket launchers made by companies that are based in the United States. And hopefully some of that product is actually manufactured in the United States, but who knows? It could all be made in China or Indonesia. But it's this big loop. So the money comes back to the United States. So we're not out as a country a whole lot of money. Maybe we're spending too much money on arms and providing those companies more profits. But if Ukraine cannot hold back Russia, they will just take the whole country and add it to part of Russia, right? I mean, we understand this, right? It's not like they're going to just do it on their own. If they don't have support from the United States and from many European countries, they run the risk of being overwhelmed by Russia. It might be slow and it might be long, and their history eradicated, their people eradicated. Millions of people will be without homes, will leave the country, flee the country. And of course, the very same people that don't want to fund Ukraine will not want to help any of the people that are now homeless. Maybe not everybody, but I'm making an educated guess that they're going to say, fuck the immigrants from Ukraine. You can't come here. Okay, well, cool. What do you want to do to help? And there is the possibility, because it has happened in the past. When a dictator finds that he can take over a country and doesn't hurt him any, sure, maybe tens of thousands of his wink, wink soldiers died, but didn't hurt him any. And now he has access to more minerals, commodities, grain, everything that he could ever want to make his economy bigger and better. Why stop there? Why not next go to Poland? Right? We know how this works. And it is honestly easier to stop Russia in Ukraine. I would have liked it if they could have stopped them on the edge of Ukraine, but within Ukraine, and let the Ukrainian people fight and survive and push back Russia so Russia doesn't try to go to even more countries. And you might think, oh, Phil, this is a slippery slope argument. Yeah, maybe it is. But Putin himself has said these very words, that this is his intentions. So I believe the guy. So anyway, there's that. But then I just saw a meme that says something like, my taxes are done and I owe Ukraine $14,000. And of course, people are sharing this around. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Isn't this funny? Stop sending money to Ukraine. Ignoring all of the arguments that I just made, the amount of money that's going to Ukraine is a very small fraction of the U.S. budget. And of course, eventually all of it matters. And all of it means we spend more as a country than we bring in. I don't think the problem is that we're spending too much. Maybe a little bit of the problem is we're spending too much. But the vast majority of the problem is wealthy people are not paying enough. So in this meme where this person is upset that they're paying $14,000, that must mean that if a fraction of 1% of our budget is going to Ukraine, then this must be a fraction of the taxes that they're claiming to owe. And so if they owe $150,000 or $200,000 or $400,000 in taxes, that means they're bringing in millions or tens of millions of dollars. And I don't begrudge someone for making tens of millions of dollars. I wish I could do that. That'd be nice. Whatever they've done, hopefully they did it and they're successful. But I am willing to bet that they're probably underpaying their employees. That's a sensitive spot for me. If you're making a ton of money, you should share part of it with the people that have helped make you rich. That's great. You're rich. Yay. But also I know from experience that often people that make quite a bit of money end up paying less in taxes. So here's someone complaining that they're spending some of their tax money theoretically might be going to Ukraine. It's obviously fictional and made up. But if they think they're paying $14,000 plus to Ukraine, their tax bill is probably in the hundreds of thousands, which means their income is in the tens of millions. And so someone that has income of tens of millions of dollars is worried about $14,000 of their tax money going to fight against the Russian oligarchs, the Russian empire, the Russian dictator. No fucking way. I am not sympathetic to you. Fuck off. If you actually are contributing $14,000 to Ukraine, great. But don't do this. Don't make these things that whine about all this money you're paying. Matter of fact, you're whining about the theoretical possibility that you're paying $14,000, which you're not, to Ukraine. Well, there's people that don't make $14,000 a year, and you don't give a flying fuck about any of them. What are you doing to help those people out? Okay, I'm just going to end my rant there. Just had to get that off. Anyway, I am going to BAHACON. You heard about that earlier in the show. And if you can make it there, if you can get tickets before they sell out, I'd love to see you. Please feel free to say hi when you're there. And we're just going to wrap up the show. And if I haven't played it already, after this, I'll have the little Seth Meyers thing on Trump, the other thing that's getting me all riled up. Anyway, I'm going to go and do something productive. I'll talk to you later. Ciao.
Here we are, you guys. Donald Trump is now the presumptive GOP nominee for president again for a third time, despite the fact that he's a twice impeached, four-time criminal indictee and racist who's been found liable for fraud and sexual abuse, banned from doing business in the state of New York for 3 years, owes over $500 million in fine, took millions from foreign governments while he was president, tried to extort a foreign country to interfere in an election in 2020, and encouraged another to help him win in 2016, actively undermined the nation's response to a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, and let a deadly disease spiral out of control. It's about to go on trial for breaking campaign finance laws by paying hush money to cover up an affair during the 2016 campaign. Orchestrated a months-long coup attempt that culminated in a violent insurrection to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power and install him as an unelected dictator. Stole classified documents and obstructed attempts to get them back, has never once won the popular vote and has been routinely rejected by a majority of Americans in election after election. Spews deranged conspiracy theories about everything from climate change to immigration to vaccines to windmills. Glitches on 3-syllable words, 2-syllable words, and 1-syllable words. Cheats at golf. Can't spell his own name, his wife's name, or the words indicted, education, unprecedented, stolen, Denmark, Kentucky, or tap. And is, on top of everything else, the single weirdest and most off-putting human being on the face of the planet.